Bonjour everyone, I am Anne-Lise Cailliez and welcome to Parlez-vous CEO, where we ditch the corporate talk and get real about entrepreneurship. Each week, I chat with founders and CEOs who build businesses their way, through the failures, pivots, and breakthroughs. And they bring the fire. Plus, I'll drop some golden nuggets of wisdom from my own entrepreneurial journey. This is your space to grow, learn, and evolve with a true growth mindset. Remember, success isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Now let's kick things off and get this party started. Hello, bonjour, bonjour, hello. Welcome to another episode of Parlez-vous, CEO. My name is Anne-Lise Cailliez, and I am your host. For those who are just joining the podcast, we're Brandora, and we specialize in helping real estate companies scale their revenue. If you want to learn how to take your business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop the word growth in the DMs. So today, I am particularly excited because we have amazing guest from Jackson Hole. Her name is Julie Faupel. I wanted to say Julie Faupel, but I'm Americanizing it. Julie Faupel. Pleasure to have you. So Julie is an entrepreneur, actor, investor, a community builder, and I can't wait to go over your story and your background. Julie, in your own words, would you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Of course, Annalise. Thank you so much. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me on this podcast and for all that you're doing for kind of the empowerment of female entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship in general. So it's a pleasure to meet everybody. I am Julie Faupel. I live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I started my career in luxury in the hospitality space. I'm from the Midwest originally and not necessarily a luxury background, but I think through my education and kind of early career experience, I have always kind of gravitated towards like how people define luxury. What's a luxury experience? And so I found my way first to luxury hospitality and then over time made my migration into real estate. My husband and I started a real estate brokerage together on April 1st of 2009. And so we started a business then and grew that over the years. Sold that a few years ago, but ultimately we had about 120 brokers, 11 offices, and we were doing about $2 billion in annual volume as a brokerage. I still stay active in the real estate community. I have an active team. And then I started Realm Global, which is a community for elite real estate brokers. I started that in March of 2020, and we've been growing that ever since. So we're in 40 states, 18 countries. It's brand agnostic. And so we don't focus on a particular brand. We focus on the provenance of the individual agents. And so we have, the most accomplished agents in the world and have built a membership based on people that make excellence a lifestyle. And so it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you so much, Julie. For our listeners just tuning in and hearing about Realm, could you describe what the membership is all about and who it's targeting, who it could be helpful for?
Absolutely. So Realm membership is by invitation only. It really covers kind of 4 areas. First and foremost, it is the community. It's a peer-to-peer network. And so it is all about kind of isolating the elite brokers in their respective communities, inviting them to join, but they have to join with kind of the spirit of collaboration and sharing. And so it's all about kind of taking the business that you're doing, sharing what you're doing is in terms of best practices, but then elevating and really saying, okay, well, what's next? The second pillar of Realm is the technology. We actually built a software platform in partnership with the team of developers that built Match.com. And so it is a software that's based on matching algorithms, artificial intelligence, and really the intelligence of the overall community. But we've got a database of 6.5 million of the wealthiest people in the world, and we're building lifestyle profiles on them and then aligning them with luxury real estate and helping luxury advisors be more effective. Then we also have kind of the media piece. So we produce a series called Location Lux, which highlights the members and their destinations. That's the third pillar of Realm. And then the final pillar is events. And so we host, 1 to 2 events a month. and that's with strategic partners or kind of the Realm community, but it's really all about activating that ecosystem on behalf of other luxury brands or other luxury experiences. So it's everything from Gagano Kitchens, which are kind of the number one kitchen design and purveyor in the world, to Rivian automobiles. So, kind of taking and blending all of these lifestyle interests of the affluent into one experience or into an opportunity for people to connect and really find new ways to network.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. So media, tech, events, do members also receive coaching?
So no, the coaching, many of our members have coaches. They don't necessarily, they have coaching, of course, from the peer-to-peer networking, but that's not a place that we have really focused on an individual level.
And so have you felt that your past experience in the luxury world helped you transition to start this business? And is that the reason why you started it? Or how did you come about starting Realm?
So Annalise, it's funny because I think I have always been, I'm one of those serial entrepreneurs that sees opportunity in just about everything. And it's what I loved about real estate. That's kind of what drew me from hospitality to real estate, was this idea that it really is this field of entrepreneurs. It's a bunch of independent business owners that are all kind of operating in their own silos. And so how do we bring that together? And how do we, kind of behave in a way that is most efficient for the client? Because I think sometimes we can all get into, okay, what does my brand look like? Or what does what is the luxury experience? And it's like, okay, but how is this affecting our clients and the way that we serve them, and being most efficient with their time and our knowledge? How do we blend all of that together? And so I think with my experience kind of historically in luxury, I loved hospitality because it was like when somebody was coming to stay at one of the hotels I was a part of, it was the culmination of something. It was like we saved for a year to have this family vacation, or I'm a busy business traveler, but I get to stay at a luxury place that is going to be mindful of my time and my energy and what's going to be the most efficient. And so then carrying that over into real estate, when it was like, so now we're amplifying the spend and the meaning of this asset by thousands, in some cases millions of times. But it's a very inefficient process. Every market somebody goes to, they have to re-educate the real estate professional. They have to kind of, make sure that they learn the market themselves, as opposed to kind of leaning more into that trusted advisor. And so the more that I started to examine the overall process and kind of the disparity between where technology is and where some of my, the elite colleagues are operating versus where the industry is, I started to become obsessed with this idea that there is a gap in the marketplace, that can be filled by relationships empowered by technology and information. So, it still is something that is, real estate is very personal. It's something that takes kind of a, it takes that experience and a trusted advisor. But then are there ways that we can make the process less painful by using tech, by building a piece of software that then can help enable the overall service experience? And so I became obsessed with that, Anne-Lise, and at the end of the day, I wasn't willing to give it up. So kept building with the encouragement of the industry and our clients, kept building Realm into something that was a viable business product.
Wow, I'm so inspired by what you're saying, and I'm so on board. And I completely agree with you with leveraging technology to ameliorate relationships. And I'm obsessed with it as well. So I relate, and I love seeing other people who love it as well and get excited about it, because there is so much to do, especially in real estate. And Julie, what is the thing that you loved about luxury hospitality before? And what is the thing that you love now doing real estate?
So I think it's the same theme, where it's in luxury hospitality, like I got to be a part of somebody's, of the culmination of somebody's dream, of the culmination of a years long effort in planning a family vacation or a reunion or a an engagement or a wedding or something monumental. So it was like a spike in time, and you get to play a small role in their long, long story, and I think that that's really special. And I think the same is true in real estate, where real estate is the culmination of something. It is like you have the first time home buyers that are setting themselves up for success and realizing what in many cases is kind of the American dream, and so they've saved, they now get to invest and kind of make something their own. And the same is true with a family that's buying a legacy property and buying something that then they can see their children and their grandchildren enjoying. And you get to be a part of that. And I think, a lot of times real estate gets a very transactional reputation, and that's not the way that when you're working at the elite end, that's not the way that it works. It's so much more about like, this is the lifetime value of these clients. These are people that you're not just writing this transaction, you're writing chapters in their story as their family evolves, as their children become parents, as they become grandparents, as, the next iteration of the family emerges. It's all about kind of how you advise them where they want to go next. Many cases, you're kind of the introduction to their sphere of friendships, their sphere of philanthropy, their children's schools. Like, you are the community builder. And I think that that's the thing that sometimes gets lost, is that, as real estate professionals, we're building a nexus around ourselves, and it's our job to make sure that people feel thoroughly welcomed into whatever environment they want to be in. And I think that that's the thing that I've enjoyed the most, is watching people really flourish based on, not necessarily based on the house that they bought, but based on the community that I helped them acclimate to.
Wow, I love hearing that, and I love how you're tying it in with one, building a legacy, but also being part of a community. So it goes way beyond just real estate, and that brings so much more meaning, and it's really profound. I love hearing that. And so, Julie, do you remember a story of your first real estate client?
I do. It's so funny. Because it's amazing. I mean, I remember our first clients really, really well. We stay in touch. One of the things that I think, because my husband and I have worked together, we end up, our clients become our friends. And so that's something that, I mean, and living in a destination like Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where, we have the most remarkable people that we get to work with. So, and so I feel so blessed, because it's like, if I were doing this in a city or in a different environment, would I have met kind of the CEOs or the kind of the legacy wealth builders, or the families that we've been in touch with? I mean, it is remarkable. But the clients that stand out to me the most, I was actually sitting in open house. So it was as the business was starting. So we were starting the brokerage, and I was sitting in open house at a $7 or an $8 million listing, and a family came in, and it was kind of just before the Great Recession had touched this marketplace. And they said, we want to buy anything that has come into distress. We want to buy it because we believe in this market. And Anne-Lise, like, I built my brand being somebody that works in luxury. And so when I was like, well, distress, like, wait, maybe we haven't met. I'm Julie Faupel, and I'm kind of fancy. And they were like, okay, that's fine, but we want to build our investment portfolio, and we think that this is a great opportunity. And so as the market continued and things started to deteriorate kind of through the Great Recession, of course I called them, and I was like, all right, there is inventory, it's in distress. And I think I was like one of the first people that actually learned how to do short sales and foreclosures in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And so in probably one of the top 5 most luxurious destinations in the world. And, kind of me with my sights set on like, I'm going to be an icon in the luxury space here. And suddenly I'm like, okay, wait a minute. That's fine. I still have to feed my family. I still have to make sure that this brokerage operates. And we sold them a lot of, real estate. And I think that there are 2 lessons there, right?
Mhm.
One, when you look at your clients, or you look at kind of people that are high net worth, these are people that see opportunity in the really, really dire times, right? And they were able to they had enough dry powder, they had enough vision, they were able to make some really, really great investments, and they were working with a broker that really cared about like, let's make sure that we're optimizing these opportunities. And so we were able to kind of move through that. But then I think what I learned myself was that luxury doesn't have a price point. And,
Mhm.
just because they weren't necessarily buying the $7 or $8 million listing I was sitting in, they happened to own a beautiful, beautiful slopeside home here in Jackson. And so that's, that's at a whole nother price point. But I would have never traded those clients because they were asking about something that maybe wasn't, in my mind, luxurious. At the end of the day, they needed the best representation they could get, and they got that through me. And so I think, sometimes everybody pigeonholes themselves to a price point in luxury, and I don't think that that is really what necessarily defines, the marketplace.
Wow, that's really interesting. So not necessarily like pigeonholing and staying open-minded, even if it doesn't look like your ideal clients or the right property type, still being open because that could still be a very enriching relationship. I think that's a great tip for the people listening. So speaking of ideal clients and ideal buyers or sellers, what's your strategy or methodology to connect with the people you want to be working with?
Yes, again, I think it goes back to, you have to be a great listener. And if there are things that you can do to kind of prepare in advance, whether that is understanding kind of more about the nuances of how they live, about, their philanthropic pursuits, or, their stage in life. I think sometimes if you can go into a meeting and identify some ways that you've got commonality, and you're sitting eye to eye rather than subordinating yourself. I think, again, going back to the industry as a whole, where real estate sometimes will pander to the client, and it's like, no, we are trusted advisors, we have the expertise in our marketplace, I know how to navigate this business. And so, making sure that I'm kind of showing up at 100%, and meeting somebody that is going to be essentially my prospective business partners. When you look at the way that real estate is handled, you've got the seller is paying commissions, the buyer may be paying a commission, and a lot of times people don't treat that as a business partnership, but that's exactly what it is. So, I mean,
Mm.
from the disposition of this asset, I stand to benefit. And so I need to make sure that I'm being the best business partner that I can be. And so I'm going to show up with kind of my marketing plan and my value proposition, and then having the client understand that that is bringing, and that they honor that kind of same contribution, so that we're all working towards the best outcome possible, I think is how I try to frame things.
Absolutely. This is amazing piece of wisdom for those of you who are listening to what Julie is saying. It's really about positioning yourself as a partner and not just a service provider. So really understanding what your seller or what your buyer is doing, their strategy, what motivates them to be really of service, not just trying to close a quick deal. Julie, so you're a queen of sales doing what you're doing. What do you think makes for an excellent luxury real estate broker? What do you think that you need to have, like the must have to be excellent at your job?
Gosh, Annalise, that's such a good question, because it's knowing what I know about the realm community, and kind of all of these people that have essentially defined luxury real estate in their markets. It's interesting because no one broker looks like another one, but I think the thing that I have seen that is a common value or a common ethos is this idea that it transcends the transaction, and it's so much more about building community and taking a look at the lifetime value, not just of one singular client, but like, what is your integrity worth? What is your sphere of influence worth? What is, kind of all of those all encompassing things. I think that that's what makes somebody really, really effective. And then you lay over that kind of your unique skill set. So, when you look at, like, for me, I'm somebody that has always been social. I'm very friendly. I'm good at making friends. I am not somebody like that is going to be breaking down the analytics of any transaction in a spreadsheet. Not, like, I can talk about cap rates, but that's not necessarily my strength. That's my husband's strength. And he's an engineer and kind of, but he's just as effective at selling real estate. It's just he resonates with a different client base. And so he and I get to kind of trade off a little bit, when it's like, okay, no, this is somebody that's a little more emotional, that's my strength. Matt's going to be with somebody that's a little more analytical. But, at the end of the day, I think it's really kind of about listening the best, but then also about being confident enough to direct. I mean, there's so much information available out there online or, just from a myriad of sources. So people kind of come into your market and they think they know exactly what they want. And then you're like, however, like, let's just back up for a minute and let me show you a couple of things that may not exactly suit your criteria, but I think you should be aware of because I like them, or because I think it's interesting, or it's another great data point. And I think just, again, pursuing that partnership mentality and, being in it so that people are making decisions for the long term, that's never been a mistake.
That's really interesting. And as far as Realm is concerned, if you had a magic wand to solve one of the biggest challenge of the business with Realm, what would it be? What would be the thing that you would love to solve within next year?
Wow. If I had a magic wand to solve, I think it's like any membership where it's like a gym membership. We were just talking about this the other day, where it's like people will join and then they think that they don't necessarily have to do anything.
Ah,
Yeah, right. And, and I think that that's kind of the thing where it, like anything in life, you get what you give. And I think that's been, it's been amazing because the people that have really given to the Realm community and have leaned in and have used it are wonderful and raving fans and have seen tremendous measurable results. The ones that kind of like signed up and then forgot about it and then go away and they say, oh, it never really did anything for me. And it's like, gosh, that is such a shame because there's so much that it can do. And I think if I were to look at it and say, okay, if everybody were to lean in, I don't know. I actually don't know if the infrastructure would handle it, but I think that would be a lot of fun. So that's the thing that I would probably cure.
So option, I mean, that's the analogy you are making is absolutely right. You can buy the best gym membership. If you're not showing up, it's not going to work out. That's interesting. So Julie, do you have any influencers or celebrities or maybe a mentor that you get really inspired by? Or do you have a dream dinner guest that you would love to have, over at home one day? It can be
Yeah,
someone.
so my husband and I are part of a succession plan. So Bob Graham and Karen Terra, who are our longtime business partners, they really are the ones that taught us real estate and taught us what it means to be kind of the cornerstone of a community. And so when I think about their legacy and what they built through building a real estate company together, through building a successful real estate practice together, there are some of the most remarkable people that have graced my life. And Karen is still around, and I get to see her all of the time, and she's an amazing, probably one of my dearest friends. Bob passed away during COVID, and he is really, when I think about him, he's somebody that He believed in everything that we did. He fostered kind of the idea that is now realm, and this incredible community, and the thought that, like, it's not about keeping things small and safe. It's about being expansive and really looking to other talented people to kind of help maintain your relevance, to help grow your business. And, so Annalise, I think I would love to have dinner with Bob again. It makes me kind of tear up, but I would love to have dinner with him to show him what we have built, because I think it's incredible. And I think that there are so many remarkable professionals out there that that are doing just mind-blowing things. And now the fact that we have a forum where we get to share that, and I think he would be so proud. And I mean, and I think it would be so much fun.
I'm sure he would be so proud to see what you've built, and the people that come in our lives and are so pivotal in uplifting, supporting, leading, mentoring. It's really profound to meet these people. So I'm glad you had that as part of your journey, and you met Bob. And going back, you working with your husband, I have a question, because this is very much a fantasy of mine, being able to have a business with my husband that I don't have, mind you. So how is it to work with your business, to be really in business with your husband? What are the pros and cons? Would you do it again? Or would you tell people, no, don't think so?
Yeah. That depends on the day. Annalise, that depends on the day, because it does, like, there are some days where I am like, I am quitting this job. Who in the world would have a partner like this? But no, I think overall it's been incredibly powerful, because it's, I think when you're so dedicated and so passionate about a career or anything, it's insidious. It's a part of your life. You're talking about it, you're thinking about it, your friends are part of the industry, all of that. And so for us, it's been very powerful to kind of have somebody that is your greatest ally, that's in the trenches with you, that can kind of get things done, help you manifest things, and you're all working towards the same goal. And so, we very much kind of operate as a team. I mean, I refer to him as by our last name. So I'm like, hey, Faupel. And people are like, did you just call your husband like by your last? I'm like, well, it's because we're kind of teammates too, but it's also, it's those shared values. It's going to events and community building, and, welcoming people into our home. I mean, I think that there's nothing more fun than kind of like having people that are new to the community, people that have been established in the community, people that have varying degrees of success or interests or what have you. And, having everybody over for a dinner party, or, or to celebrate the holidays. Those are all things that, that we very much enjoy together. And so I think as long as you kept that balance between, okay, this is a lot of business, and maybe today wasn't my most favorite day in real estate, but that's okay, because, I get to come home and I still have an opportunity to unplug. And it does take us a couple of days. Like when we're on vacation, I'm like, okay, who's the asshole in the office next to mine? Oh, no, that's my husband. I actually really like him. But like, so you have to be able to do both. But we've always done a pretty good job of that. And his skills are so different than mine, so that it creates a great balance.
That's amazing. That's really inspiring to me. That's confirming my fantasy that it could be really fun and really great. So for those of you listening, this could be really great. Partnering with your husband can be one of the best things. If it's the right partnership and you're complementary and you work well together, that could be so much fun, because as an entrepreneur, you mix life and work and things get all meshed up. And why not? If it's fun and if you put boundaries around it, why not? I think that couples can make really potent alliance, because you can really be, the best cheerleader of each other. And that's really powerful.
I think so, Annalise. And I think it's like I think part of my success has always been, actually not always, but I think as I've gotten older, is being able to be vulnerable and to kind of bring some of that humility. And, that means that you have to be in a safe space, and I think that that's creating that. And whether it was, as I mentioned, Bob and Karen, and them creating a space that fostered some of our success rather than trying to squash it,
Hmm.
or Matt, my husband, kind of being in an environment where it's safe enough to be like, "Oh boy, this is, we're going to have to get the helmet and the safety goggles out. This is going to be a disaster or it's going to be great." But it's like, I think there's a lot to be said about just kind of also finding that place of, kind of authenticity and enough comfort with yourself that you can kind of bring that to other people that are looking for that.
I love everything you're saying. So working with your husband, I also know that you invest in startups. Could you share a bit more about what you do and what inspires you in that realm?
Sure. So Matt and I have very different views on kind of what he's excited by and what I'm excited by. But I think, for him, when we moved to Jackson Hole, that was 23 years ago. And so it was, we were 3 months married. We didn't have any idea what the future had in store. And, he was somebody that was always passionate about making housing affordable for people that want to live here and make a career here. So when we exited the real estate business, of course, we're still selling real estate, but we had, we kind of had a different level of liquidity. And so he started to build affordable housing and kind of get into some of those partnerships. I'm somebody that loves entrepreneurship and fostering great ideas. Really, so that's more of where I leaned into, which is, I think it's so amazing to have the opportunity to work with people, especially now that we're kind of getting into these next generations where, they're such innovators, they are such problem solvers, and they're doing things that, that I would have never conceptualized because it's just not part of how I grew up or part of my repertoire. And so how they solve problems is so different. And I love the opportunity to kind of be in on the ground floor and kind of fostering that, because from that great innovations evolve and wonderful things happen, or maybe not, but you still are part of, like, I think sometimes the most successful people in the world are not people that succeeded on the first time. And so making sure that it's that resilience is also really fostered and taught, because of course you're going to fall down. As long as you fall down and you fall forward, like, that's kind of the secret to success. Like, brush yourself off, get back up, keep going. If you believe in your idea, then make it so.
And so that's how you're picking the founders that you want to be working with. That's the grit that you're looking for,
The
the
grit and
resilience.
the energy. I think that's like, I'm somebody that feeds off of that, where it's like, okay, yeah, we can come up with 10 business ideas of the day if it's somebody that is creative and excited and wanting to solve a problem. And I think that, because I think a lot of that too with entrepreneurship is like, you have to be able to pivot. Realm does not look at all like it did when we conceptualized it versus where it is now. Like, it doesn't look at all like what we thought it was going to, but that's part of the magic.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to pivot when necessary and not get paralyzed is definitely something each entrepreneur needs to be able to do very well. That exercise of being very flexible and rebound quickly. And Julie, so can you share with our listeners what's coming up next for you, and also what's the one thing you want to achieve for your business, the business for the next year?
Yes. So what's coming up next? So annually we have a big event in May of every year. And so that's coming up next, or it's this month actually. So we have May 19th to the 22nd at the Breakers in Palm Beach. And so we've got about 200 to 250 of our members that will be there, learning and collaborating and really, and celebrating, the successes of the last year. And so that's kind of right around the corner. And of course, getting a lot of our focus just in terms of, the thought leaders and the awards that are going out. And it is such a remarkable community and group of people. So I'm excited about that. This year for Realm, our focus is really largely on growing into other verticals. And so the platform doesn't just work for real estate, it will work for any luxury asset. And so we've got more wealth managers, more family offices, which is really cool. And we're looking at international expansion. And so we're in 18 countries now. we kind of hope to be in 40 countries by the end of the year. A lot of kind of activations that way, and a lot of growth. And so it's exciting to watch it all evolve. And I think that, over time, that the goal for Realm would be that it becomes more and more of a marketplace for trusted advisors that are dealing kind of in the high net worth and ultra high net worth world. And so whether it's connecting with each other or connecting with luxury assets that are, selling or people are acquiring, but they want to do so in a confidential manner. That's what the platform was built for.
Oh, that's exciting. So you have a lot in the pipeline for it, and that sounds super exciting.
Yeah.
And Julie, where
There's
can
never a dull moment, Annalise. And I think too, now when you look at the trends in the luxury marketplace and everything that's happening that way, it's kind of this incredible blend of all of these generational definitions of luxury. So whether it's kind of like the baby boomers and they were far more branded. So like, I have a Rolex watch or I drive a Mercedes Benz, that's luxury, to now you've got, the Generation Xers or the millennials that were more the experience economy and, and wanting to share experiences and travel and kind of that whole shared economy. And then COVID. And so, Generation Alpha and some of these generations that are still up and coming, they were all about peace of mind and kind of like, okay, I don't want to be separated from my loved ones. I don't want to be constrained. And technology has taken a whole new role. And so now combining all of that and really being the thought leadership that helps define what the next iteration of luxury looks like is wildly exciting, because I think it's just getting more dynamic.
Wow, that's so exciting. So Julie, tell us, how can people find you?
So you can find me, you can go to our website, which is realm-global.com. So REALM-global.com. And my email is simple. It's just julie@realm-global.com. But I'd love to hear from anybody. And of course, reach out.
Thank you so much, Julie, for being our guest today on Parlez-vous CEO. It was a real pleasure to have you and have this conversation. And I'm sure it was really helpful for our listeners.
Well, Anne-Lise, thank you. Congratulations on all of your incredible success and on the businesses that you've impacted. It's amazing. And it's just been a real pleasure to have a conversation with you.
Thank you so much. And that wraps up today's episode on Parlez-vous CEO and our special real estate series with female leaders. I am Anne-Lise Cailliez, and I can't wait to join you again next week. Thanks for listening to Parlez-vous CEO today. If you enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star review. It helps us keep going. And connect with us on Instagram at Parlez-vous CEO. I am Anne-Lise Cailliez, and I know some days are harder than others. On those tough days, think back to why you started. What you're doing today matters, even when you can't see the results yet. Ideas are great, but it's what you do with them that counts. Find everything we talked about today at parlezvousceo.com. See you next week, and you've got this.